The business was growing organically. And after we opened our third location, kind of 4 happened right away, like within 12 months. Because the brand was hot and people wanted us. So we were hiring. And now we have 7 locations. And I'm looking back and I'm going like, wow, we're doing good, but we can be doing better.
What comes to mind when you hear the phrase scaling successfully in hospitality? Maybe elusive or dream come true? For today's guest, Amir Mostafavi, scaling successfully in hospitality is all about great partnerships.
It was kind of like them getting to know our business, but also like us getting to know them, then getting to know us. So it really is like a dating process. You have to really figure out, is this someone that I want to be married to in my business, right? Because it really is like a partnership, it's a marriage.
If you've had that moment of realization that your hospitality brand has bigger potential and you've got the ambition to match, we have just the show for you. Today, we're talking about growth and more specifically, what it takes to fund that growth. Not through bootstrapping or borrowing from friends and family, but through finding the right financial partner to help take your business to the next level. And our guest today thankfully knows a thing or two about just that. Might be a little weird if he didn't. Amir is the founder of South Block, a fast-growing, fast-casual brand serving juices, smoothies, and acai bowls. And he's someone who's learned firsthand how to navigate the high-stakes, high-reward world of private equity. I'm Rachel Stainton Markus, and this is Science of Service, the podcast where we uncover the strategies behind building successful hospitality businesses. Whether you're a seasoned operator or just starting out, you'll find insights and inspiration to help you thrive. So let's get into today's show. Before we dive into South Block's growth story, let's rewind a bit and get to know Amir. Like many founders, his experience with business started early, really early. Growing up in a family of entrepreneurs, he got a front row seat to the highs, the lows, and the sheer number of hours it takes to run your own operation. And, of course, he picked up a few lessons along the way that stuck with him. One early takeaway, that owning a business might not be for him.
Yeah, so I grew up in an entrepreneur family. Well, my dad was a business professor who then started his own video rental businesses in the 80s and 90s. And, I grew up working in his video stores, and that was kind of my first experience in working and seeing an entrepreneur life. It was a neighborhood video store in McLean in Falls Church. First one he had was actually in DC. He opened in 1987. Then he opened Box Office Video in McLean in Falls Church. And I worked there. My friends from high school worked there. And it was a lot of fun. But I thought the lesson I learned from an entrepreneur perspective was that I did not want to have my own business because I saw, his life when he was a professor, and, he worked hard when he was a professor, but he had summers off and we would go on vacations and stuff. So when he started his business, all that went away, and he was working 7 days a week and rarely had vacation time. So I thought, I wanted a 9-to-5 corporate job, and I went to school at Virginia Tech and got a degree in graphic design and got my job in graphic design, and quickly realized that wasn't for me. And then I realized that, hey, maybe my dad wasn't so crazy, because he was passionate about what he was doing. He was excited to get up and go to work every day, and he would go to bed thinking about the business. And that's when I realized, I'd rather be busy than bored. And I was just so bored during those days sitting in my cube in that corporate environment.
So now Amir had his reason for starting a business. He didn't want to be bored in a 9-to-5 job that lacked purpose. And he wanted to be busy, so naturally, hospitality was a perfect fit. But that wasn't the only lesson he picked up working in the family business. While his dad ran the books at night, Amir watched his mom in action during the day shift, and how she interacted with customers left a lasting impression.
One of the lessons I took from my mom was just her connection with the customers that would come in. We were competing with Blockbuster, and people were coming to us because of the connection with my mom and the employees there. She would know their names, they would know her, she would know what actors they liked, what movies they liked. So they'd come in to talk to her. And so that's what I took with me when I opened my first juice bar. I had no experience in food service other than 2 weeks at a sandwich shop at Virginia Tech. And I quit because my manager was a jerk. And that was all I knew, is if you're a jerk, your employees will quit. But the other thing I took, though, from the lessons from our community video store was building connection with your community is so important to your business. And that same sort of idea of connection with community has stuck with us to this day.
Looking to escape his corporate role and step into the welcoming and not boring at all world of hospitality, Amir started a juice and smoothie shop at George Washington University in Washington, D.C. And that first step was built on some deep roots: the importance of community, knowing your customers by name, and creating relationships, not just transactions. Oh, and there's another vital ingredient he picked up along the way: his first taste of acai.
Well, I didn't get introduced to acai until a year after I opened my first juice bar, which was, I describe him as this surfer dude who was from San Diego. He came in with his cooler and he was like, "Hey, you mind if I make you something?" And I was like, yeah, of course. And he came behind the counter, blended up this thing for me, started putting some toppings on it. I took my first bite and I was like, oh my gosh, this is like the greatest thing I've ever had in my life. How do I get this stuff? So I literally started importing it and put it on my menu. It would come overnight on dry ice. I don't have any hard evidence of this, but I'm pretty sure we were the first on the East Coast to sell acai. So this is back in 2005, literally 20 years ago. So I put it on the menu and nobody cared, nobody knew what it was.
What's acai?
But yeah, I loved it, and I just would share it with people. And then fast forward to when I opened the first South Block in 2011 in Clarendon, I made half the menu acai and just wanted to really introduce it to the community and really leaned into it. Then it just started taking off. I'd say around the time Instagram got popular, when people could see photos of it, then it just started people wanted to try it. Yeah. And now it makes up more than half our business. So
amazing.
And we still make it the same way that surfer dude taught me back in 2005, which is not the easiest way, but it's the authentic way.
There's one more important piece to the South Block story, and it comes from a personal experience that stayed with Amir since childhood. An experience that shaped not just who he is, but how he leads. It's also a driving force behind how South Block gives back, and a big influence on how Amir thinks about growth, impact, and community.
My dad's from Iran. My mom's from Illinois. They met in Chicago when they were going to school, and then when they got married, they moved back to Iran. And I was born there, and my brother and sister were born there. He was getting his PhD, and the university in Iran sent him to Kent State in Ohio to get his PhD. And they were paying for his school, his stipend, his living. But then the Revolution War broke out in Iran, and he lost all of that. So all the funding, his house back in Iran, and basically my parents had to start over, right? At this point, we're 4 kids in a 2-bedroom apartment. What I learned from that is a couple things. One, my dad still figured out how to get his PhD and worked through it and got his PhD, became a professor. But also, I remember eating healthy was still important to him. He was wanting to make sure us kids were still eating healthy. He would never go to the grocery store for anything except to get fruits and vegetables. But there was a period of time there where it was tough and we needed support, and we were getting food stamps and relying on that support. I think he proved through hard work and perseverance, you can overcome any challenges that come your way. But one of the things I took from that is that when we needed the support, it was there for us. The community was there for us. So I started a nonprofit in 2019 called Fruitful Planet, which mission is to get fruits and vegetables to people in need throughout the community. So to date, we've donated over 70,000 pounds of fruits and vegetables to people in need in the communities around us. And that's something I'm really proud about. That's how I look at our business is about our larger purpose. And just knowing that sometimes people need support, we want to be there for them. And not everyone can always afford to eat fruits and vegetables. So that was definitely a lesson that I think I took with me. I feel like in business, look, if I was only passionate about selling smoothies and acai bowls, you'd lose your passion pretty quick. So you have to make it about a larger purpose. Yeah. And you have to bring your team into that journey and share that purpose with them.
South Block's very first location opened in Clarendon, just west of Arlington, tucked into a 700 square foot space that most people had just overlooked. It was on the south end of the block, far from the buzz and foot traffic of the block's northern corners. But Amir wasn't chasing crowds. He was focused on serving a community that didn't really have any fresh or healthy options just right outside their door. And with a mission to help people feel awesome, one block at a time, South Block, see what he did there, officially opened its doors in 2011.
It was not overnight success, right? It took a good 2 years to build up that business. And I think about all the things I did to build up that business. Like when you're an entrepreneur, I didn't have any money. I had to take a mortgage out. When I first started, we had a 1-bedroom condo. We took a $30,000 line of credit out. I built the counters myself. And if the business didn't make it, like we don't have a roof over our heads, where I can't feed my kids, you have everything on the line and your back's against the wall. So what do you do in that situation? The answer is like anything and everything you can, right? There's no resting. So I would get up and open the store. Sometimes I'd have to go and buy ingredients for the store in the morning, open the store, work all day, close the store at night, maybe go to an event. We used to go to like yoga events or fitness events and sample products out, answer emails, answer the customer feedback, marketing, and then you get a little bit of sleep and then you wake up and do it all over again.
That part of Amir's story will sound familiar to a lot of founders, wearing all the hats and working all the hours. He was managing inventory, doing the marketing, keeping the books, serving the customers, and just casually building the store too. But all that hustle started to pay off as South Block became part of the fabric of the Clarendon community. And with momentum building, Amir started thinking about what might come next.
We were just kind of selling smoothies, acai bowls, having a good time. The business was growing organically. And after we opened our third location, kind of 4 happened right away, like within 12 months. The brand was hot and people wanted us. And I had these awesome opportunities to open like 4 more stores with very little cash needed the way it worked out. So we took advantage of them and opened these stores and hired people. So we were hiring. And now we have 7 locations. And I'm looking back and I'm going like, wow, we're doing good, but we can be doing better. I didn't feel like it was a business that my family could be proud of. I want to see what we can do with this. I want to go for it, and I want to see if we can share South Block with more communities on more blocks and give more opportunities for people that want to work at South Block and want to grow their careers here. So that's what I decided to do. It was a pivotal moment of like, do we just kind of do our thing here, keep opening a couple here and there, and then ride off into the sunset, or do we really try to go for it?
In our last episode of Science of Service, we unpacked a whole range of growth strategies with our very own CFO in residence, Georgina Cavendish. If you haven't heard it yet, I definitely recommend giving it a listen after this one. Georgina gave us the lowdown on private equity, one of the go-to funding options in hospitality, and how it can help a business not just scale, but scale smart. It was a path Amir had been introduced to as well. But like many founders, he'd heard the cautionary tales. Investors who were laser focused on financial returns and didn't quite vibe with the heart and soul behind the brand. What makes a successful restaurant business special? Amir knew that if he was going to take on a partner, it had to be someone who got the South Block mission, someone who believed in growing with purpose, not just profit. And that search got a serious boost thanks to a recommendation from another operator in the DC area, hospitality veteran Scott Shaw from Alexandria Restaurant Partners.
He opened up a magazine article and said, I think if you were ever going to raise money, like these guys would be an interesting group to look at, because the article was all about that they're operators and that they are focused on founder-led businesses and founder vision and culture. And, it's refreshing to hear a private equity group that thinks that way. So when I finally decided to go and we were getting offers, right, before we started our official process, they call it, right?
Wow.
So when we started our official process, I said, we better do this the right way. So let's start our process. So we got an investment banker. I learned so much. It was like crash course in raising capital because I've never done it before. But my advice is that you surround yourself with awesome people. Like you have to have a great investment banking team, great accounting, bookkeeping. You have to have a great attorney. If there's any advisors that you can bring into your team. So I had a great team. And I also brought my team into the process, which I thought was important because I wanted to make sure that my team was also comfortable and bought into who we were choosing as a partner. So we started our process and we had a lot of other offers that some of them were richer offers. At the end of the day, I just had to go with my gut. And I followed my gut I feel like throughout this past 20 years in business, and I feel like you have to trust your gut in a lot of cases. So I met Savory. They have a restaurantology conference out in Salt Lake. I went out there just to kind of see what they were all about and try to introduce myself, and met Andrew Smith at the conference. It's very busy and he's very busy, and he's walking during one of the breaks through the hall. And I just, they had this, they call it a scorecard, right?
Yeah.
And it had all this stuff on it that at the time, I was learning about numbers in business, but we weren't that sophisticated where we had a scorecard that had all of our numbers like prime costs and our labor and our COGS and all this stuff that private equity, I came to learn, like cares about, right?
Yeah.
But I looked at the scorecard and then I started like plugging in our KPI metrics, and I was like, oh, we're actually doing pretty good. I'm like, good for us. And so I just jumped in front of Andrew in the hall and I was like, hey, Andrew, I'm Amir with South Block. We were introduced over email, blah, blah, blah. And he was in a big rush, and I'm like, by the way, this is our scorecard. We're crushing it.
I really admire that confidence so much.
Just to like, for a moment, let it be known that we were there. So anyway, I mean, something must have worked because we ended up getting an offer and becoming partners.
Amir makes it sound easy, but there was a ton of preparation that took place ahead of time to get that offer. He put in the work, like a lot of work. South Block had already grown organically to 7 stores, and it was clear his brand was strong. But Amir wasn't just chasing scale. He wanted to build something his team and family could be proud of. So as a recap, because there was a lot of juicy goodness in there, he doubled down on his purpose and what type of investor he actually wanted. Someone who respected founder-led businesses and cared about culture and the mission just as much as they cared about ROI. That's when a trusted voice in the industry, Scott Shaw, shared an article about Savory Fund. They sounded like the real deal, and Amir started doing his homework. He pulled together a great team of support, an investment banker, an attorney, his bookkeeper, and some seasoned advisors. Plus, he made sure his internal team was looped in and on board. And he didn't just hope for the best. He used a KPI scorecard to benchmark South Block's performance. Not only did they tick the boxes, they were already knocking it out of the park. So when Amir ran into Savory Fund's Andrew Smith, scorecard in hand, he knew exactly what South Block had to offer. And the rest? Well, that's where the real scaling began. And it started with a full commitment to the process.
Our timing was pretty good. It was right ahead of the Restaurant Finance and Development Conference in Las Vegas. So we launched our process, had our deck and sent it out to folks. And then our investment banking team set up meetings with everybody at the conference, which was great because it was like speed dating.
Yeah.
So then you start narrowing it down, like who's interested in making you offers. And then once you get the offers, what happened for us is like people then would fly into town and you give them tours of your business and they meet the team, and there's a dinner usually at the end of the day with them, going to some kind of like steakhouse or something like that. So I was like tired of like steakhouses by the end of it. I'm like, okay, this is enough. How do you guys do this every night? It was kind of like them getting to know our business, but also like us getting to know them, then getting to know us. So it really is like a dating process. And you have to really, kind of figure out, is this someone that I want to be married to in my business, right? Because it really is like a partnership. It's a marriage. So do you get along? Does your team get along? You just have to be prepared during that process for a lot of meetings and a lot of calls with your finance team and your accounting and your attorney. You have to make sure you have the bandwidth to do that during the process.
It's a fun analogy, right? Finding the right investor is kind of like dating. There's even a bit of whining and dining to it. But sticking with the theme, if you're serious about dating, you've got to make time to invest in it. Like Amir said, you need the bandwidth, which, okay, doesn't sound super romantic. Still, the point stands. Even if you're juggling a million things, wearing all the hats and spinning all the plates, which is standard in hospitality, even if you're not fundraising, you've still got to carve out time for the prep. That means building your deck, doing the outreach, and laying the foundation for a real relationship. Pining away for that sweet moment when you lock eyes with your investor and proudly proclaim in a room full of other investors and business partners, I do. I love a good love story.
Once you choose which offer you want to go with, then you have for us, it was like a 90-day diligence process, which again is like, you just got to be prepared. Like I would recommend that if you have someone on your team. Like I was lucky enough to have this guy, his name is Adam Kramer. He's currently my vice president of supply chain, but he's been with me since we opened our third location in 2015. He's been my right-hand guy the whole time, knows where everything is like better than I do. So having him, if you have someone like that who can help you through the process and help you on the calls and help provide the information during diligence, like that's going to, I think, make it a lot easier on you. And then you go through the 90 days diligence, assuming you get everything worked out on all the details and both sides are still comfortable, then it's time to close the deal.
All right. It's the wedding day.
Yeah, then it's the wedding day.
Engagement's over.
Another steak dinner.
And hey, who doesn't love a good wedding? Especially when it's a perfect match like South Block and Savory Fund, and especially when there's an open bar. Amir didn't mention there was one when he signed their agreement, but I still think that's a hot tip for any private equity partners listening in. Both sides took the time to run the numbers, align on the mission, and really understand what partnership should mean beyond just the paperwork.
We were fortunate to have offers from good people, but Savory really stood out to us in that sense. But also their model is a little bit different. And I think that's something you got to think about too when you're raising capital is like, what stage are you at in your business and where do you want to go next? And then where do you want to go after that? Because there's some private equity that will be like your forever partner, right? With Savory, their model is they generally invest in emerging brands, somewhere around 5 to 15 locations, and then help the brands scale to 50-ish locations. Mm-hmm. And then you go onward to another private equity. So you're another event, they call it. Mm-hmm. So I loved that model because then I could see a clear goal that we were all working towards as a team. And they bring their team to support their brands too. They have a team of people who come from different areas of expertise and backgrounds that can help support their brands. So that was comforting, because you only know what you know, knowing that we had their support and that we were all kind of marching towards the same goal together. And then I know that my team and I have a very clear goal right now, right? Yeah. We want to successfully get to 50-ish locations. We want to open in a new market. We want to try to maintain our quality of product and culture as we're growing. And then we'll find the next private equity partners that's going to take us beyond 50.
And you were talking a little bit when you first got started, you took out a line of credit on your mortgage. Obviously now having private equity funding, it's very different, right? You got cash, you got liquidity.
Yeah.
What tangible benefits have you now seen in your business from that private equity?
Yeah, for one, I think one thing you have to remember when you go to private equity is you can't be careless with money. One person once told me that you have to always imagine your business is going bankrupt, right? But one thing we have been able to do is focus on being prepared to scale for growth. Right. Just like any stage in your business, you have to adjust and adapt. And so we started focusing on some of the things that, work to get us to 15 locations aren't going to work to get us to 50. I think technology is a big piece of that. So we added some new tech. We launched a new app, just started building our team. So we're investing in growth so that we can more successfully open locations at that scale while maintaining our culture and everything that has made us special up until this point. But I think that's been the biggest thing over this past year is figuring out what we're doing that's great that we need to figure out how to do on a larger scale. So we developed it's called a learning management system, LMS system for our training. It used to be like when you got hired at South Block, you would meet with me in person and I'd go over, we didn't really even have much of a handbook at that time, but whatever we had.
A binder.
I might even just chat with you and say, here's your shirt, let's get started.
This is a blender.
Yeah. So, then that kind of evolved into, my brother joined South Block. He's been here, probably 7-8 years now. But we all wear so many different hats, right? So part of what we did this year is started removing some hats. Like my brother, for example, is vice president of facilities, but by the way, he's also doing HR. He's also doing payroll.
Oh, okay.
So now he's not, now we have Savory doing payroll. We just brought on someone last week who's going to be people and culture manager. We want to make sure we're still focused on people and culture, bringing someone specifically for that. But I think with your team, like in the earlier days, you're so scrappy and everyone's wearing all those different hats. So I think part of it then is like figuring out what your team's interests are, where they want to go in the company, let them lean into and focus on those strengths, and then make sure you're bringing in other people for some of those other hats that still need attention and focus. Most companies that find success, I feel like, have high achieving, hardworking people. And that can also cause burnout, right?
Yeah.
And that's me, right? So you have to be mindful of that. And I think a lot of people get motivated by that. Like they want to be busy. They want to be achieving things all the time. But you also have to manage people's bandwidth and to make sure that you're giving the proper care to a job function because you want to make sure it's getting done right. So I think that's an important part of being a leader and scaling a company is managing your team's bandwidth and their focus and building your team, filling out your org chart with the necessary needs of your business.
Yeah. If you've ever wondered what happens after the deal is signed and sealed, for Amir and South Block, it meant stepping into a whole new phase of growth. As part of taking on private equity, South Block now has a board. It's made up of 5 people, 2 from South Block and 2 from Savory Fund, plus a bonus from another Savory-backed brand, none other than the CMO of Swig, the dirty soda giant hailing from Utah. Shout out to Texas Tabs. Amir tells us they're all fantastic board members and they bring a great mix of experience and perspective. But it's not just about board meetings. Amir and his team have also leveled up their KPIs. Even with South Block performing well already, now they're diving deeper, tracking things like same-store sales, store-level transactions, and growth on both an individual and a brand-wide level. And it's not just data for data's sake. This is the kind of insight that helps fuel smart, strategic scaling.
That was an adjustment to get used to because we have weekly KPI meetings. So just getting used to, it was kind of a new cadence for me and my team. And then also like kind of learning the lingo and, what you're looking for in those reports. So it's good though, what we're going to start doing now is, we've been so focused on growing our team the past year or two. And that's another thing with private equity, like don't expect private equity to come in and run your business, right? You are still responsible for growing your business, for building your team. Like they'll be there to help support, depending on the private equity groups. But you need to be prepared to still build your team, to build your tech stack, put systems in place. So we spent this last year really building tech stack, building our teams. So like, for example, with the KPI reports, we're going to start sharing with the marketing department so that they can see store by store, are there certain stores that need extra marketing support to help lift them, right? They're not meeting our goals, so then we can put some fuel behind the marketing effort for that location. Yeah. That's not something we've looked at in the past, when we were smaller and not this sort of growth mindset. So tracking how all the stores are doing is a good discipline, and then seeing where there's opportunities to improve if you start to see some, a store like not hitting its goals. So, and then how you can include the rest of your team and the rest of your departments to help be part of that solution, because it really is a team effort.
After weathering COVID, building a solid team, locking in private equity, and yes, a few dozen steak dinners along the way, you'd think Amir might be a little worn out. Who could blame him? I've got the meat sweats just thinking about it. But part of Amir's magic is just how optimistic he still is. And yet, you have to wonder, bringing on outside partners, sharing the businesses he built from scratch, was he ever nervous about it? Did he have any hesitations?
I really thought that I was going to be a lot more emotional about closing, because I've never had an equity partner and this is my baby. Yeah. And, I thought that it was going to be a lot more emotional for me when we closed, which it was, but more in like a proud way, kind of stopping saying, wow, there was many times where I thought I was going to go out of business and then here we are, right? Yeah. So it was kind of just more of like a pinch me moment. And I think because I took my time and I followed my gut and I felt good about the direction we were going, I was able to like more appreciate and enjoy the moment than have anxiety or fear about it. The timing was right for myself and for the team and for the business. So yeah, I think just stopping to appreciate the work.
Now, growth can be a beautiful thing, but it also comes with some unexpected challenges. As Amir expanded, his role at South Block has shifted. He's no longer in every store every day, but that doesn't mean he's stepped back from the mission. Staying connected to the team, the customers, and the bigger picture is still his focus, just in a different way.
That's been one of the, it's like a hard part of the business, but one of the strange parts of growing the business. I used to know everybody, and I still try to get to know as many people as I can, but we have 300 employees, and so I'll walk into a store sometimes, and they'll know me because they see my welcome video and this and that. A lot of the stores have a skateboard with my face on it too. They kind of tell the story of our growth. And so then I'm like, oh my gosh, have I met this person?
That's when the name tags come in handy.
We don't have name tags though.
Okay, all right.
Maybe we should.
Challenging yourself.
Like, hey, I'm Amir. Have we met? And then like when they're new, it's awesome. But when they're like, oh, I've been here 6 months, I'm like, oh man. But that's one of the things, like as you grow, you just have to realize like you can't be everywhere all the time anymore. But you still have to figure out how to not have blinders on to the business. And that's my purpose in the business, is to have a bird's eye view of the business and make sure that we're not losing sight of our people and our quality of product and our customers, and then just try to kind of driving vision forward through my team. But yeah, I'm not able to visit every store. I used to be able to visit every store every week.
Yeah.
So now I'm not able to. So you gotta.
That's a lot of miles.
You gotta learn, how to adjust to growth. But I'm at every grand opening.
Yeah.
And I love it. I show up with. We have a block party at every grand opening. You'll see me with a big green fist that I wear, like a Hulk fist. And the reason I do that, it's just one, because like I like to say that I believe that we invented fist bumps. Like again, no proof of that.
Right.
Fist bumps has been like a big thing for South Block for a long time. So I wear it because everyone who's in line, I give a fist bump to with the big green fist, and it's fun. And we have a DJ there, and like I do a little talk to welcome everyone in the community to South Block and introduce ourselves to the community. So being involved in the business from that perspective is very important to me. That will always be important to me. But you do have to let go of things along the way. And it's hard for a lot of founders, entrepreneurs to let go of things. But when you build a company with great people around you that are also high achievers that you can trust, it makes it easier.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I haven't given up my fist yet.
You can pry it out of your cold fist. Love that. Amir's shared some seriously valuable insights today, from building a brand with heart to growing with intention, all while staying true to his mission. And before we wrap up, he's got one last note for us. It's thoughtful, inspiring, and the kind of perspective you only gain when you've been in the thick of it, leading a business through big change and still showing up with a giant green fist.
I'm so happy with how everything turned out, but I think you have to be prepared to run your business and go through the private equity fundraising process simultaneously. It's funny because you go through it and it was a tough year, but every year has its challenges in running business. But then when you look back on it, you're like, wow, look at how much I did. Look at what we did. And I actually kind of missed that process in some ways, like the meetings that we had and the conversations that we had and
the ribeyes.
The ribeyes. I think that's what happens with any hard work. Once you put in the hard work and reach a goal, you look back on it, and I think you in some ways like miss the process, even though it was so hard getting through that challenge at the time. I think just take your time with it. Don't rush it. And don't raise money when you have to raise money. Like you're too late at that point, right? So, and a lot of private equity, like they're not going to invest in you if you have to have your house in order, right? You have to have good numbers. You have to have your house in order.
A big thank you to Amir for sharing his story today, complete with hustle, humor, and a whole lot of ribeyes. From scrappy early days and hand-built counters to strategic expansion and private equity partnerships, Amir's journey with South Block shows what's possible when you lead with purpose and prepare with care to build a thriving business. He's shown us the ropes and packed in some great advice, but if you're thinking about scaling or even just curious about the road ahead might look like for your business, There's a lot to learn from Amir's experience. So go ahead and rewind and don't be afraid to take notes. And if you want a little study guide, don't forget to check out the show notes for extra insights, links to resources, and some inspiration to fuel your next hospitality move. Thanks so much for joining us today on Science of Service. I'm Rachel Stainton Markus, and if you enjoyed the show, please rate, review, subscribe, and share it with a fellow operator who's dreaming big. We'll see you next time.